Sir. Good evening to all of you. I'm Dr. Sharmistha Aich. I'm presently the program coordinator of this webinar. In this webinar, we welcome two eminent guests, Mr. Ramananda Sengupta and Dr. Bijoy Kumar Choudhary. So, let me first tell you, Mr. Ramananda Sengupta, who is an editor, journalist, and communication professional over last 3 decades of print and digital media. Currently, he is consulting editor with Defense Review and India Bloom's New Service and has diverse projects for various NGOs. So, we would like to request you to enlighten us with your views on the current topic, that is ancient culture and heritage of Nalanda.
You want me to start? I thought
Yes,
Dr. Choudhary was supposed
I think
to
Sir
start.
was telling that it's a
You
sequence that
want me to
matters.
start? Okay, fair enough.
Definitely. So
Fair enough.
anyone,
We
sir.
can
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
we
sure.
can start now,
I'll be
na?
happy to
Time,
start. Sure,
yes.
I'd be
So
happy to start.
as I was mentioning that this is we have a pride of ancient culture and civilization which were inculcated by the ancient Nalanda University,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that in the 75 years of the independence of the country, that ancient university is neglected because that used to have such an importance in past that we should have celebrated it and we should have focused it. Our current education system, which we call as a new education system, and with the ancient Indian education system, which how much we are learning from ancient education system and what we ought to have in the present context. That is somewhere missing. So I thought that
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Shane Gupta will would like to share his feelings and findings about the ancient University of Nalanda. And then Dr. Vijay Kumar Choudhary, who is a well-known
Sure.
archaeologist and historian, would like to give his expert opinion on the ancient Nalanda University. Long back,
Sure.
I visited and I also wrote on the land Rajgir, and that book was
Mm-hmm.
published sometime in 1979 or 80. That is on Rajgir, where I have mentioned
Mm-hmm.
about ancient university and all that. But those were the old days, and that needs to be updated. We are having a series. The Society for Empowerment is organizing a series of lectures by eminent persons and experts on the ancient Nalanda University and the culture and heritage, because that is a place which embodies the culture of its time and heritage of today. So we need to connect both the things, that how far, if we want to be Vishwaguru, then what, how much we should learn from the ancient university or how much importance we should give to that. That attribution is due to that ancient Nalanda University when we talk of Indian culture and civilization. So, and there are excavation also, which the visitors today or the experts of today, they go and visit and then they come out with their own opinion. So we have one person with us, Dr. Vijay Chaudhary ji, who has done some excavation and he will tell us to everybody that it is there. And we welcome both of you and we welcome our moderator also, because she is also an biomedical anthropologist, but she is also being trained in cultural anthropologist. So this is
Mm-hmm.
this is and we also welcome our viewers. Our programs on ancient Nalanda University and the other programs are also very popular. And at the end of the presentation, we get questions from our viewers. So those questions are also to be answered by the
Sure.
speakers to whom that question is raised. So that is
Mm-hmm.
another important segment of the webinar of today, or each webinar which we conduct. Generally, we conduct at least two webinars in a month. This we are doing for last 4 years. We have some compilation of the all the webinars which we are doing, and we wish to have publish it. And then we have a tradition. We have made a tradition of sharing of the whatsoever is presented in the webinar with the government concerned ministry of the government, so that if there is any gap that can be understood by the government and that can be taken care of. So there are some webinar in which the policy were discussed and government took interest and then policy were modified and we redrafted the policies for the government, for the people. So our commitment is the people, not only the people of
Mm-hmm.
India, but people of the globe, because we want to share the knowledge. We want a platform to, to exchange the knowledge. Most of our webinars are international, and we have international viewers and international speakers. So it's an international platform. And today's webinar is being watched by the PMO only because this is 75 years of independence. And earlier we have done 3-1. And in each 3-1, we have found that the speakers has suggested that we should go for some sort of giving re-importance to the university so that we can rejoice our past and heritage and the importance we can give some linkages of latest education system with the ancient Nalanda University system of education if possible. So this is the subject of discussion today, and I would like first of all to hear our Mr. Shane Gupta, who is a well-known journalist and has done extensive work on different aspects of Indian culture and civilization. So, Mr. Shane Gupta ji, please have your make your presentation. Do you have some graph or something like that you want
No,
to
not
show?
really. I have a rather brief thing because, if it's
Okay, okay. Then you
really
go ahead with your
sure,
presentation. Viewers are
sure.
waiting to hear you.
Hmm. Um, Thank you, and a very good evening to everyone here and all those viewing this online. Let me begin by thanking Dr. Narayan and the Society for Empowerment, the panelists, Dr. Choudhary, the moderator, Dr. Aich, for inviting me to speak here today on a subject that has perhaps not received the kind of attention it really deserves. But I'd like to begin with a disclaimer. I am a journalist, I'm not a historian or an academic. So most of what follows is culled from various sources, including a few books which I had almost forgotten I had. You can see the pile behind me. There are some which, have been there. I've gone through half of them and then forgotten that I had them. I have tried to double and triple check dates and names, but given the huge amount of conflicting literature on the subject, I'm sure there will be some references which are open to other interpretations or challenges. So do forgive me if I, stick to some of them. As a journalist, I've always been fascinated by how India and China, two truly ancient civilizations and neighbors divided by the mighty Himalayas, took radically different trajectories over the years. But even the Himalayas failed to prevent Buddhism from reaching China, which I'm told today has more Buddhists and Buddhist artifacts than India, Nepal, and Sri Lanka put together. You can probably add Myanmar to that list. And a major part of the reason for the spread of Buddhism to China and beyond was Nalanda, the world's first residential university and one of the greatest centers of learning in the ancient world, which, according to whatever knowledge we have today, existed from the 5th to the 12th century. Then it was raised by Bakhtiar Khalji, a general under Muhammad Ghori, who went on to rule Bengal for a while. Historical records show that the university had been destroyed twice earlier. The first was by the Huns, led by Mihirakula during the reign of Skandagupta in the mid-5th century, but it was rebuilt on a grander scale by his successors. The second destruction came in the early 7th century by Goda's Rovansh, also known as Shashank, who at one time was known to have cut the Bodhi tree under which Lord Buddha had attained enlightenment. But King Harshavardhana subsequently restored the richness of the Nalanda tradition in the 7th century, and it was he who invited Huan Sang, the Chinese monk and traveler, who was in present-day Assam in search of Buddhist wisdom of the time, to visit Nalanda. The third attack by Khilji spelled doom for what could have been called the Ivy League of the ancient world. In his chronicle, the Tabaqat-i-Nasiri, the Persian historian Minhaj-i-Siraj reported that thousands of monks were burnt alive and thousands more beheaded as Khilji tried his best to uproot Buddhism and plant Islam by the sword. The burning of the library continued for several months, and smoke from the burning manuscripts hung for days like a dark pall over the low hills. This ended in total decline by 1197, the year 1197. Some reports say that over 9 million painstakingly curated documents culled over several hundred years were reduced to ashes. Imagine the kind of knowledge that has been lost to the world just because of the rampant act of an aggressive ruler. The ancient university in the kingdom of Magad, which is today's Bihar, played a key role in promoting the patronage of arts and academics during the 5th and 6th century, often described as the golden age of India, even though India as we know it didn't really exist in those days. But the point here is that Yuan Sang, who traveled around India for 13 years in the early 7th century, reportedly spent between 2 to 5 years at Nalanda, where apart from Buddhist studies, he attended courses in Sanskrit, grammar, logic, Yogacharya, and even warfare under Shila Bhadra, the head of Nalanda at that time. At the height of its glory, Nalanda University thus was devoted to not just Buddhist studies, but also trained students in fine arts, medicine, mathematics, astronomy. Aryabhatta, I believe, is associated with Nalanda politics, and as I said, even the art of war. Yuan Sang, it is said, with Harshavardhana's blessings, returned to China with over 150 Buddhist relics, including several statues, and 657 Sanskrit texts, carried in 520 cases on 20 horses sometime in the mid-7th century. Much of our knowledge about Nalanda comes from Yuan Sang's memoirs and biographies, although many monks and students from Central Asia, Tibet, Indonesia, Korea, and even Japan are said to have lived and studied at the university. According to Yuan Sang, the lives of all these virtuous men were naturally governed by the habits of the most solemn and strictest kind, and since its existence, no man has ever contravened the rules of discipline. The king showers it with the signs of his respect and veneration, and has assigned the revenue from 100 cities to pay for the maintenance of the religious. The Chinese monk Yi Jing, who also visited Nalanda in the late 7th century and returned with another 600 or more Buddhist manuscripts, had this fascinating anecdote about how Nalanda's administration was based on assembly and consensus among resident monks. It is something I think we in India and the world need to really understand and practice in some ways. According to him, if the monks had some business, they would assemble to discuss the matter. Then they ordered the officer, Viharapala, to circulate and report the matter to the resident monks one by one with folded hands. With the objection of a single monk, it would not pass. There was no use of beating or thumping to announce his case. In case a monk did something without consent of the residents, he would be forced to leave the monastery. If there was a difference of opinion on a certain issue, they would give reason to convince the other group. No force or coercion was used to convince. The ruins of ancient Nalanda lay forgotten till the newly formed Archaeological Survey of India under the British rule, long after the Mughals, conducted an official survey in the early 1860s. But the actual systematic excavation of the ruins started from 1915 till about 1937. Post-independence, the ASI conducted another round of excavation and restoration between 1974 and 1982, but there is still a lot of work that needs to be done. In fact, I believe parts of the ruins are actually under the existing village right now, so it becomes very difficult to sort of excavate that particular area. Today, Nalanda, the ruins of Nalanda is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and a major tourist attraction, particularly on the Buddhist circuit. The idea of reviving Nalanda as a center of excellence in knowledge dissemination on and in Asia was first proposed by President APJ Abdul Kalam in February 2006 during his official visit to Singapore. Singapore, in turn, enthusiastically pushed the idea with the Nalanda Symposium in November 2006, which in turn led to the East Asia Summit. East Asia Summit comprises 10 Asian nations, plus China, Japan, India, Korea, Australia, and New Zealand, to call upon its members to make appropriate funding arrangements and on a voluntary basis from government and other sources, including public-private partnership for this non-state, non-profit, secular, and self-governing international institution. Now, those are very key words: non-state, non-profit, secular, and self-governing international institution. The Bihar government, after acquiring land for the project, passed it on to Delhi because of its international character. And following an act of parliament, the foundation was first laid in 2010. After some teething troubles, which would be standard for most universities, the first batch of 12 students were admitted in 2014. Initially, the university operated from a campus in Delhi, then from a makeshift campus in Rajgir, Bihar, before finally starting operations from its new campus in 2019. It is interesting that unlike most universities in India, which are run by the Ministry of Human Resource Development, Nalanda is funded by the Ministry of External Affairs. But even though it is seen as an example of India's soft power and a part of India's Look East policy, now known as the Act East policy, there were a series of unwarranted and unseemly events in the administration and running of the university, which I won't go into here because I'm sure all of us know enough about it. But what happened was that a lot of nations which had initially shown interest in the project started losing interest because they didn't want to get involved in unnecessary spats. But in February this year, the university, led by its new Vice Chancellor, Dr. Sunaina Singh, invited a few visitors to the newly constructed 443-acre campus, which is huge, just 10 kilometers away from the ruins of the ancient university on which it is broadly modeled. Almost 80% complete, the new campus has some 200 separate structures, including an administrative block, which overlooks one of the two large lakes on the campus, an amphitheater, meditation hall, and academic blocks. University officials say that over 500 students from India and abroad are already on the rolls, and that the university now offers several academic programs out of 6 schools. Upcoming facilities include hostels, a commercial complex, a recreation area, prayer and meditation rooms built on the banks of the second lake. Dr. Singh, who has been spearheading the university's revival on a war footing, wants to forget the earlier unpleasantness and start on a clean slate which focuses on academics with a world vision. I personally think that even though the challenges like location and lack of modern urban facilities, it is in a slightly remote area if you look at it that way, like malls and hospitals, which we take for granted are a challenge, they can be turned into a selling point for the university. Given the growing revival in Buddhist studies, not just in China, Central and Southeast Asia, in countries like Myanmar, Thailand, Sri Lanka, a few and lots of other places, we can and should push to bring Nalanda back to the world. Perhaps the teachings of the Buddha will help bring sanity to an increasingly troubled world. And India, with its ancient traditions, its ancient culture of peace and absorbing cultures from across the world instead of being xenophobic about it, I believe can play a major role in that. I also believe that conferences like this can play a major role in making this happen. It is important, therefore, for us to help make the government understand the critical importance of pushing this project as much as it can. And let's all hope that we see a brand new Nalanda, which is based on the ancient university, bringing glory to not just India but to the world. I would love to be, somebody who's part of this process of making this happen. Thank you very much.
So I would like to request Dr. Bijoy Kumar Choudhary to enlighten us with the topic.
Say thank you to Professor Sachin Narayan, who gave this opportunity to share my views on Nalanda. I am particularly very keen because right now, presently for the last 2 years, I have been excavating a Buddhist monastery site in the district of Nalanda itself. The site is known as Tirhana, the ancient Tildhak monastery, and this is about 35-40 kilometers west of Nalanda Mahabihar site. So actually, I also contributed a paper in the Man and Environment a few years back on the lesser known Buddhist monasteries like Tirthak and certain other monasteries, thinking that Nalanda Mahabihar is such a well-known site. But having got this opportunity to speak today, when I was thinking of this presentation, I of course realized that there is so much, uh, there's such a big chunk of information and features that we still don't know about Nalanda and we have still to learn and understand. Mr. Sengupta has already touched on some aspects of the archaeology and history of Nalanda. But let me start my narrative with how Nalanda was discovered, because we all know that Buddhism, once such a popular religion in India, uh, its memory was lost in the medieval times. And Nalanda, an institution of pan-Asian fame in ancient times, it was completely gone into oblivion to the extent when a British explorer, Buchanan Hamilton, around 1810, 1811, went to Bargaon, which has the remains of Nalanda Mahabihar. He was told by locals that these heaps of bricks belong to the Chero dynasty, which once ruled over this region. Well, Buchanan was not taken in by that interpretation because he had been to Burma earlier and he had seen Buddhist sculptures. So he had this inkling that this site has something to do with Buddhism, but he was not too sure about that. So it was not until 1850s that the beginning of the identification of Nalanda began, and it so began that the translations of Chinese travelers Faxian and Xuanzang began to be translated into English. Uh, in fact, Xuanzang was quite a popular figure in China, and he had already become a part of Chinese folklore, and his travelogue was well known in China. But the outside world did not know about it until its translation into English in 1850s. And Alexander Cunningham, engineer in the military, British military, he lay his hands on this translation and he had already started his developing interest in Indian archaeology, and later on he of course became the pioneer of Indian archaeology. So in the accounts of the Chinese pilgrims, uh, the distances and the directions between different Buddhist institutions of ancient times were described more or less accurately. So Cunningham now knew from Fashian's account that Nalanda is about one yojan, that is about 16 miles away from Rajgir, And when he reached the ruins at Bargaon, he started intensively searching for the evidence to identify it with the olden Nalanda University. And he discovered two inscribed seals in the debris, and these seals read Sri Nalanda Mahabihar Vikshu Sanghasya, belonging to the assembly of monks of Nalanda Mahabihar. So that way, the issue of identifying the ruins at the village of Bargaon with Nalanda Mahabihar was cleansed. But as Mr. Sengupta rightly said, that it was not until the uh, the beginning decades of the 20th century, and to be precise, in 1915, that Archaeological Survey of India undertook excavations at the site. So, can we have the first slide, please? So, in this slide, I say that we can celebrate the discipline of archaeology at Nalanda, because it was through archaeological method that this city was discovered and revived. And I have got certain very old photographs for you. On the left hand side of your screen, you can see the flat land. And at that point of time, nobody was aware that what really uh, lay underneath. And on the right hand side, you can see one of the most important edifices of Nalanda ruins, that is Temple Site 3. Next slide, please. Now you can see that how the digging is in progress on the left side of your screen. Laborers are there atop the mound. And on the right hand side, you can also see the laborers. And now this structure has been exposed. The next slide, please. Now you see that how this structure is being unraveled, and those of you who have gone to Nalanda ruins can identify the watchtower, which is exposed on the left hand side, and on the right hand side the entire wall and that tower is in view. Uh, so yes, this is how the Nalanda Mahavihar was discovered. Now, let me now talk about very brief the history and archaeology of Nalanda Mahabihar. By the way, the term now be used for Nalanda is Nalanda University, and of course, the ancients, the monks who lived in Nalanda, they did not call it at a Vishwavidyalaya, which is the Hindi translation of university. They please keep the slide there only. Earlier slide also. Don't put the yeah. They did not use the term Vishwavidyalaya. They use the term Mahabihar. But I have thought about this dilemma, how to designate this institution. And I am also of the view that much that went on uh, in terms of imparting education there really qualifies to be called university. And definitely, Nalanda Mahavihar is one of the oldest universities in the world. And now we realize that how difficult it is to maintain the quality of an institution for a stretch of time, for 10 years, for 40 years, for 50 years. And mind you, here was the institution which maintained an almost an impeccable quality for almost 700, 800, 100 years. And this is something which I'm really amazed at. And different Asian powers, Chinese, Korean, Sri Lankan, Burmese, they virtually vied with each other for donating certain structures at this great institution in order to connect their name with this glorious institution. Such was the reputation and quality of this institution, and to maintain it for centuries is something we should marvel at and we should try to imitate and learn from. So, Let me try to make some sense of the amazing maze of structures which you find at Nalanda. When did Nalanda as a site begin? So here I would like you to keep an important distinction in your mind. Nalanda as Mahavihar or as university as we are calling it now, and Nalanda as an archaeological site. So Nalanda as an archaeological site was in existence right in the 6th century BC because we have the knowledge from the Buddhist literature and the Jain literature that the sages like Buddha and Mahavir frequented this site and they stayed there for uh, different stretches of their careers. Even before 6th century BC, we have evidence that this area had human settlements. Nalanda, as a sacred Buddhist place, owed its origin probably in 3rd century BCE because Ashok is supposed to have erected a stupa to commemorate the memory of Sariputra. Sariputra, you remember, was one of the chief disciples of Buddha. So Ashok erected a stupa here. So the earliest stupa may belong to 3rd century BCE, and archaeologists believe that maybe some stupa existed earlier there also. Now that stupa was encased by another stupa. Stupa is a hemisphere, and you know that it is erected as a mark to commemorate the memory, or it contains the relics of either Buddha or the chief Buddhist monks. So the 3rd century or 4th century BC stupa was encased by another stupa, but yet by another stupa, and the structure that is on the view on the slide, this structure, and the watchtower that you saw earlier, that belong to the 5th phase of structural activities at Nalanda, and that belongs to the Gupta period, about 4th century AD. Archaeologists think that the stupas which are underneath this structure are so brittle that if you expose them, they will collapse. So there were different layers of accumulations at Nalanda, and when you visit the main temple site 3, what you see on the top is an early medieval structure belonging to about 7th, 8th century. And you will mark that there are different staircases at that temple site 3. Why there are different staircases leading to different heights are because they belong to different periods of history. So just to repeat what I said, to summarize, that the structural activities at the site of Nalanda stretch right from 3rd, 4th century BCE to about 11th, 12th century CE. This is the uh, archaeological sense that we get from the uh, excavations and archaeological activities at Nalanda. Who established Nalanda University or Nalanda Mahabihar? We get from Xuanzang that one Shakraditya, he established the monastery of Nalanda, and this name is identified with the great Gupta ruler called Kumar Gupta. So that would put the beginnings of Nalanda Mahabihar as a big monastery, as a center of education in 4th century CE. Just to add a footnote here, Xuanzang, who had come here, he said that the Mahabodhi temple and the temple site 3 of Nalanda Mahabihar, they look alike. Even their heights are the same. So that really makes one wonder about the common authorship of these two temples. You will be surprised to know that archaeologists and historians even don't know about the exact establishment of Mahabodhi temple. Who established Mahabodhi temple? When exactly was established? Apart from the fact that they were that this was established about 5th 6th century CE. So that is about the beginnings of Nalanda monastery as a center of education. Can we go to the next slide, please? Uh, during the period when the watchtowers were erected, the Gupta period, the beautiful stucco figures were uh, established all around the wall, and these stucco figures are so exquisite and beautiful to look at, and you can view them. And unfortunately, many of the stucco figures are now uh, endangered, and ASI only recently has started concerted efforts to conserve them, but many of them are already lost. If you if I talk about the arrangement of Nalanda Mahabihar as a structure, then you will find that there are two rows of buildings at the site. One row extends in the eastern direction, another row extends in the western direction. In the eastern direction, you have the row of several monasteries, and in the western side, you have several temples that were established there. And these monasteries and temples really looked at each other, And in 1935-36, as Mr. Sengupta was mentioning, the last year of the concerted ASI activities at Nalanda, one Mr. Chawla was excavating the site, and he rightly pointed out that the extent of Nalanda Mahabihar has not been exhausted. It is still going on and on. And he really saw different structural activities of ancient times towards the village side. And I was drawing a sketch of Nalanda, of the extent of Nalanda Mahabihar on the basis of Xuanzang's account. You will be interested to know that for the last 2 or 3 years, we have again taken up the Xuanzang's travels in Bihar, and we have been following the trail of Xuanzang and trying to identify the places mentioned by Xuanzang. And in that process, lots of new facts and new sites are also coming up, and we are collaborating with the Cardiff University in this project. So when I was trying to make a sketch of the extent of Nalanda Mahabihar as drawn by Xuanzang, my estimate is that the campus stretched up to an area of 16 kilometers. And what we have from the diggings of Archaeological Survey of India is merely 1.6 kilometers of Nalanda ruins. So that means that only 10% of the original campus of Nalanda Mahabihar has been exposed so far. In the post-independent period, ASI has also taken up excavations at Nalanda, and they have come up with certain new temples, certain new structural features. But uh, compared to the greatness and extent of Nalanda campus, I must say that the excavations have been very limited. And as days pass by, excavations are going to be more difficult because there because the entire area is getting populated and villages are coming up. So it is high time we really undertook excavations in whatever areas we can lay our hands on. And as Mr. Sengupta was rightly pointing out, that this is a UNESCO World Heritage Site protected by Archaeological Survey of India. So this institution has to really gear itself uh, towards this task. Now, having told you about the archaeology of Nalanda Mahabihar, let me briefly touch on the history of Nalanda Mahabihar. Can we go to the next slide, please? No, earlier one. Where did I get that? Okay, no, no, earlier. You are going to the later only. Can we go to slide number 5? Slide number 5. Oh, this is slide number 5. Okay, forget about that. Okay. Uh, Actually, I would like to emphasize on two or three important features of the working of Nalanda Mahavihar, and one is its cosmopolitanism. Not only peoples from trans-regional areas they had come to this place. They were people of different ethnicities, as I was mentioning, Chinese, Korean, Sri Lankan, Burmese. So there was an institutional arrangement which really uh, maintained a balance, you know, in face of multi-ethnic presence at Nalanda. And the arrangements were such that there is an inscription that was discovered at a neighboring village called Ghusrama. I will show you some slides of Ghusrama site also. And there it is said that a gentleman called Bir Dev, who originally belonged to Nagarhar, and Nagarhar is somewhere in the Swat Valley in Pakistan now. He traveled from Nagarhar and settled down at a place called uh, Yasobargpur, which is identified with Ghosrama, a village in Nalanda district. There was a Buddhist monastery there. He settled down there, and gradually he became very esteemed personality. He became known to the ruling Pala ruler of that time. His name was Devpal, and he also became very dear to the head monk of Nalanda Mahavihar. And then the assembly of monks at Nalanda Mahavihar chose Bir Dev to be the chancellor of Nalanda Mahavihar. Now, this is a very important evidence. I have published it in some article because once it gives you the mechanism how a chancellor of this institution was appointed. But more important than this is that look at the acceptance. A person from such a distant land is coming, and because of his scholarship and his character, that he is made the chancellor of Nalanda University. Where is the son of soil feeling here? The people were so broad minded. I think you may be aware that Xuanzang, when he came to this place, he was welcomed wholeheartedly by the monks here. And he was named as Mokshadev here. His name was Mokshadev at Nalanda Mahavihar. And there's a narrative that when he started to go away, when he started to leave from Nalanda Mahavihar, the monks assembled all around him and said, "Why are you going to China now? You have come to the Holy Land, the land of Buddha, and you should not go away now." And Xuanzang had to go. He had the mission to complete. He said, No, uh, why are you stopping me from going from here? Because after all, we are believers in Buddha's philosophy, and Buddha's philosophy is universalism. So we should not talk about here and there. Things are so universal. Uh, so what I'm trying to say that an environment of cosmopolitanism was prevalent in Nalanda. And in fact, from the Nalanda excavations, several seals were discovered, and a profound scholar called Hiranand Sastri, he was an epigraphist. He deciphered these seals and sealings, and he found that there are a number of village seals. So the villages which were around Nalanda, and you may be aware, and probably Mr. Sengupta mentioned that Harshvardhan is supposed to have donated the revenue of 100 villages for the upkeep of Nalanda. By the time of Itsing, the number had swelled up to 200. So maybe the records of these villages were preserved at Nalanda Mahabihar, and in the seals, the presiding deity of each village was mentioned. And in most of cases, they are Hindu gods and goddesses, Uma Maheshwar or Vishnu or Surya. So it was an atmosphere of not, it was not only cosmopolitan atmosphere, it was a multi-religious atmosphere when the religions of others were also accommodated. This is also evident from the course of study at Nalanda Mahabihar. It was a Mahabihar primarily devoted to Mahayana Buddhism, but we know that Vedas were also taught there. Nyay was also taught there. Apart from these things, sculpting and medicine, the secular subjects were also taught. So, multi religious character of this Mahabihar is very much evident. And had it not been so, had it really embroiled itself into some uh, communal uh, wranglings, then this institution won't be able to maintain excellence for such a long period. This is very obvious. Uh, the fame of Nalanda Mahabihar was such that, as I was mentioning earlier also, that the Asian kings really craved for donating something here. And there is an inscription of the Pal ruler Devpal, which says that a king from Suvarndeep, which is identified with Indonesia now, he requested Devpal to make the donation of 5 villages, that is revenue of 5 villages, for the upkeep of Nalanda Mahabihar. And Devpal says that at the request of, I forget the name of the king now, king of Suvarndeep, I am donating 4 villages of Nalanda Bishay, Bishay meaning district at that point of time. 4 villages of Nalanda Bishay, and he gives the name of those villages, and one Bishay of Gaya, sorry, one village of Gaya Bishay for the upkeep of Nalanda Mahabihar. So, uh, these 2 points I wanted to make. One is the eclectic, cosmopolitan, and multi religious character of Nalanda. I would like to make another point now, and that is Nalanda Mahabihar was not operating in isolation. In fact, there were excellent neighboring institutions also. Uh, and I am aware of existence of at least 10 or 12 Buddhist monasteries in the vicinity of Nalanda. The site which I am excavating right now was also an important Buddhist monastery at that point of time, and uh, Xuanzang had visited that place. Can we go to the site of Telhara, please? Next slide. Yes, this is the excavations at Telhara, which is about 35-40 kilometers west of Nalanda Mahabihar. So Xuanzang had visited this site, and he mentions the glory of the Tildhak. The name of Telhara was Tildhak at that point of time, in glowing terms, that there are 3 monasteries and there are life-size statues of Buddha, and we also know that a Chinese scholar was studying at this Tildhak monastery, and he was copying some manuscript of Mahayana Buddhism at that point of time. There, there have been a number of exquisite sculptures that have come out from Telhara, not only from our excavations, but from earlier exploration also. A renowned art historian called Janice Liasco, uh, who works at Austin, she had visited Telhara in 1980s, and she had seen the sculptures, and then she saw sculptures from Telhara at the Indian Museum, Kolkata, and also at Zurich Museum. At a Zurich museum, when she looked at the sculpture of Ablikateshwar, a bodhisattva, so to say, she could understand that this sculpture belongs to Telhara because the texture, the thematic symmetry really coincided with the sculpture at Indian Museum, Kolkata, and uh, and the sculptures which are kept at Telhara itself. And from our excavations, also sculptures from 6th century CE to 12th century CE, black stone sculptures, sandstone sculptures, bronze sculptures, we have found a plethora of sculptures from the site. And also uh, number of seals and sealings, inscribed seals and sealings. I don't want to go into details of my excavations. So, can we go to the next slide, please? Next slide. Now this is a village, Ghosrama, which is. I was mentioning about this village in terms of the uh, inscription that was discovered way back in 1848 by Major Quito. At the village, even now, I tell you, there are at least 75 Buddhist sculptures. And I claim that anybody who's interested in understanding Buddhist iconography and Buddhist philosophy, if he visits just the village of Gosrama from the sculptures, he will learn a good deal of things. Here also you can see that here is Buddha in the Bhumi Spars Mudra. Here is the sculpture of a Ablikateshwar. Can we go to the next slide, please? From the Ghosrama itself, we also have a Hindu sculpture. She is Durga, lion riding Durga, Singvani Durga as we call her. And this is on the right hand side, you have the image of Marichi. She is a Buddhist goddess of light, a counterpart of the Hindu Suryadev. And instead of the 7 horses of uh, Lord's son, Marichi has 7 pigs, and there is a charioteer. In the image of Lord's son, you have the charioteer called Aruni. Here also she has a charioteer, and out of her 3 faces, 2 are pig headed. So here you have the goddess of Marichi. I have not been able to put more slides from Kusama. As I told you, there are more than 70 sculptures still existing at Ghosrama. So this site Ghosrama was a Buddhist monastery of ancient times, and it was known as Ghosita Rama. A scholar from Harvard University, she got a manuscript which has a colophon, and that colophon gives the name of Ghosita Rama, right? And she was not aware of the fact that there is a village called Ghosrama which has a huge Buddhist presence. And when she was informed, she could understand that Ghosrama can be identified with Ghosita Rama. But what the scholar had, she's a lady. I don't remember her name right now, but I can give the name if someone is interested. She she really showed that the painting on the colophon is similar to ones which are found from Nalanda Mahabihar. So can you see that Nalanda Mahabihar was a center of excellence in this region, and several educational institutions and monasteries that uh, came in its vicinity, they had Nalanda Mahabihar as an ideal reference point. In fact, I have come across a seal in which it is said that a site called Ongari, that this Ongari Pratibaddha Nalanda Mahabihar, this site of Ongari is attached with Nalanda Mahabihar. So Nalanda Mahabihar was also an affiliating center. So someone rightly pointed out that it is like Ivy League. And I would like to say that in present times we have a cluster of institutions springing up at a particular place. Here also a cluster of institutions sprang up, and probably you are aware that at Nalanda Mahabihar it was not very easy to get admission. And Swansang mentions that when the scholars came, there was a Dwarpal, gatekeeper, akin to our admission in charge in university. He would put uh, questions, and only those who successfully could engage with those questions were asked to enter. So only 10 to 20% scholars who sought admission at Nalanda Mahabihar could get admission. Where the rest of would go? And people came from far-flung areas, China, Korea, Japan. My hypothesis is that these neighboring institutions like Tildhar and Ghosita Rama, they accommodated these institutions. And I'm amazed that even these institutions had such a cosmopolitan atmosphere because people from multi ethnicities they stayed here. What was the mechanism? How a common inhabitant really uh, looked up to these institutions? Because Buddhism, right from the beginning, was bound in a very wide circuit, a pan Asian circuit, a pan Indian subcontinent circuit. As I told you, that a person from Nagarhara in the Swat Valley went on to become the chancellor of Nalanda University. There is a village called Kurkihar in the district of Gaya now in Bihar, from where we had got 234 bronze sculptures from a chance finding from the digging of a farmer. They are kept in the prestigious Bihar Museum at Patna now. Uh, A. Banerjee Sastry in 1930s wrote an article on that, deciphering the inscriptions that were put on the images, and he showed that most of these sculptures were donated by artisans, monks, and businessmen from Kanchipura. Such was the broad circuit in which Buddhism was bound during ancient times. And how the common villagers, how the common inhabitants, what kind of world view was there? And we know for sure that we don't have evidence of much communal strife during that time. Uh, there was a coexistence. There are instances of tension, as was mentioned by Mr. Sengupta, that Shashank uprooted the Bodhi tree. But I would like to remind Mr. Sengupta that Shashank, in his own place, accommodated the Mritika monastery, a monastery flourished right at the outer skirts of his city. So we have to take these evidence of Shensang with we should really weigh very carefully. But by and large, there is no evidence of communal distance and hatred during that time. From the same period, from the same place, we get a multiplicity of sculptures belonging to Shak, Vaishnav, Jain, Saur, Buddhist. So these religions, these sects existed side by side. Uh, Now, at the last 2 points, I hope I'm not taking much of time. Should I stop now?
Interesting. Go ahead.
Hello?
It's very, very interesting. You go ahead with your
Okay, fine.
presentation.
I will not take more than 5 minutes now.
Yes.
At the last but one point, I will uh, discuss the decline of Nalanda, the great institution. Well, Mr. Sen Gupta, we do not have direct evidence that Bakhtiyar Khalji really went on to destroy Nalanda Mahabihar. Tawakat-e Nasiri by Minhaj mentions the destruction of Odantpuri monastery by Bakhtiyar Khalji. And the description that you presented really is valid for Odantpuri, which was about 1620 kilometers away from Nalanda Mahabihar. And it is supposed that the modern town of Bihar Sharif contains the remains of Odantpuri. But it may be possible. I'm not denying, because Bakhtiyar Khalji did destroy Odantpuri, and we have also the evidence of Dharm Swami, a Tibetan monk, who stayed in Nalanda between 1230 and 35, that he also destroyed Bikramshil, of great institution in the district of Bhagalpur in the Anga region. But there is no direct evidence to suggest that Bakhtiyar Khalji destroyed Nalanda Mahabihar as well. He could have, and there is no record that we have of that destruction. Because we know from the account of Dharma Swami that Dharma Swami was staying at Nalanda Mahabihar in 1230s, and he says that there were only 5 or 10 monks, and a very, very old monk was the chancellor of Nalanda Mahabihar at that point of time. And then they heard about the incoming Turk invasions, and they were very scared and they fled away from Nalanda Mahabihar. And then that proved to be a rumor, so they again came back. And Dharmaswamy tried to persuade the old chancellor to go away with him. Old chancellor refused. Nothing doing. I will stay here only. So, uh, and then Bakhtiyar Khalji goes to Bakhtiyarpur, because a place called Bakhtiyarpur is named after Bakhtiyarpur. So we can assume that he really established a camp there also. And then he, as you rightly said, from Bakhtiyarpur he moved eastwards and went right up to Bengal to invade that in 13th century. So the decline of Nalanda Mahabihar really could be for different regions also. I mean, one Turkish invasion was one region. Another fact was that after the establishment of Turkish rule in India, the patronage dried up for Nalanda Mahabihar, because for such institutions to flourish, you need large scale patronage, and that patronage was absent. We also have evidence of, as you were also pointing out, that there were certain conflicts with Brahminical sects also, but as I said, that by and large it was peaceful. So if you ask me, this is my personal view, that I would attribute two main reasons. One, the drying up of patronage after 13th century, and also the Turkish invasion, because Dharm Swami also paints a scary picture of Turkish invasions, not only for Nalanda, but for Bodh Gaya also, and for Bikramshila also, of course. So, at the last point, I would like to say that what we need to do at Nalanda now. Nalanda is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and as one of the parameters of World Heritage Site is that you have to have a master plan of the vicinity. And I should inform you that district administration is engaged with the task. ASI is also cooperating, and HUTCO has been given the task of preparing the master plan, and they have to come up with the master plan very fast now, because it has already been declared World Heritage Site, and if you don't come with the master plan quickly, they might kind of your World Heritage Site might be endangered also. There is a problem of encroachments right at the gate of Nalanda Mahabihar, the Nalanda site. You will find uh, about 70-75 hawkers, but that is still a small problem. And I think with the district administration being proactive, and the present district administration is active in this regard, they are taking measures to uh, rehabilitate those hawkers at some nearby place. Another thing, as I was pointing out, that we should go for extensive excavations in whatever space is limited, because 30 years from now, 50 years from now, you will not get a single inch of land to excavate. So this is the time, this is a high time you really did this job. Another thing is that we have to uh, we have to conserve the artifacts very, very carefully, because stucco figures, many of them exquisite stucco sculptures, have really gone forever. Even at Bikramshila, many stucco figures have gone forever. So these thing has to be done. And at the last very last point, I would say that not only Nalanda Mahavihar, but all the Buddhist Bihars which are in the vicinity of Nalanda Mahavihar, like Ghosita Ram, like Tildar, like the Buddhist monastery as Kurkihar, which was probably known as Kukut Pad Bihar in ancient times. These monasteries also should be excavated properly, preserved properly, so that when a tourist visits Nalanda Mahabihar, he has also the surrounding places to go to, and stay in that region for a long period. So once again, I just put end to my presentation, and once again, I thank Professor Sachin Narayan to giving me this opportunity to share my views with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You have made a very lucid and very apt presentation, especially your suggestions. I think is very important, which one should consider if we are really interested in knowing the ancient Nalanda University. So this is I enjoyed your presentation, and I think that the others who will listen your presentation will also enjoy. So this is something very great, a good presentation, an excellent presentation which you have made on Nalanda. And then Ramananda Sen Guptaji has also made his presentation in his own way. Uh, so I also thank him for um, agreeing to the request made by the Society for Empowerment, and hope he will continue to keep uh, the relationship with society for a longer period, because he is a versatile writer and you write on various subjects. So we will contact you in future also. So with these words, I will request Sharmistha to conclude the today's program.
You're on mute.
Your voice is
Thank you
not.
so much. Yes, sir. Thank you so much. It was really great to have a great accumulation of knowledge relating to the ancient culture heritage of Nalanda. I would like to request any questions, any queries related to this topic, so that the specialists, the people can answer to it. Any questions or queries related to this topic?
No, no,
May
there
I
is
ask
one
a
question,
question?
but there is one question, but to whom it is addressed? Cosmopolitan vis-a-vis
But
globalization. Are they same? This is addressed to whom? This
And
question?
also, I tried to respond to that, even though I don't know if it wasn't directly addressed to me. But I was wondering if I could ask a question to Dr. Choudhary.
Okay.
Just a quick question, sir. So you mentioned that there are areas which have already been sort of encroached by villages and things like that. How does one excavate in a situation like that? Can you uproot an entire village and say that we're out of here and we want to dig here? Maybe it's possible in China, but in India, can we do that?
I could not quite really, the quality of sound was not very good, so I could
Sorry,
not
can
understand. Yeah.
can you hear me now? Is this better?
Yes, clearer. Yeah.
Okay. I was wondering that you mentioned that there's already a lot of encroachment on areas which may have ancient Nalanda underneath. How does one sort of manage to evict all these people and move them out of their village, an
Yeah.
entire village?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
In China, it's possible, I suppose. You can just do it by force, but in
Yeah.
India, it becomes a problem.
Yeah, I know
Is there
that.
a
And
special way of doing that? Has it been done at all ever in India?
Mr. Sengupta, I for once, I am not in favor of really sacrificing the present for the past. The past has to accommodate with the present, and I won't call them encroachments also, because the villages have naturally sprung up, and they are where they are. This is their property, the village lands. But what is still possible is there lots of vacant spaces, and those vacant spaces will not remain vacant uh, in the future. So we should take advantage of that instead of evicting, right, people.
Mm-hmm.
Let us take advantage of the vacant places that are available, and there may be certain places where you need to uh, ask the villagers if the structures are spectacular. For example, if a monastery is atop a village, for example, I am digging a site called Telhara. I've been digging it
Yes,
for the
I
last
saw
2 years.
those pictures. They were
Yes,
beautiful pictures.
and I will tell you that the entire village is atop the monastery. Now, uh, it is a fit case to really persuade the villagers to give their land in compensation. And now the government has to ensure that these villagers are given compensation, resettled at some place, because I am not uh, in favor of evicting villagers or any population because there are past structures, because the human cost is too much. So I'm never be of that view. But what about the vacant? There are
Mm-hmm.
lots of vacant places and lots of past features can be unearthed even now. And I would also
Mm-hmm.
like to comment on that cosmopolitan versus globalization, though we are not sure to whom this question was addressed. Uh, well, you see, we should kind of be very wary of terms, because terms like university, as I was pointing out, has a modern connotation. It has got a certain meaning because of its context. Globalization has also a connotation. The globalization, I am not an expert in globalization. Professor Sachin Narayan is here. He can better explain that term. But I feel that it has got a modern economic connotation also. The kind of multinational companies, the kind of neo imperialism, and things like that. By cosmopolitanism, I use this term in the sense that you have not one ethnicity. It is not only Indians, it is not only Eastern Indians. There are peoples from different ethnicities are staying at same place. For example, Bodh Gaya. If you take Bodh Gaya also, can you imagine that a Sinhalese king made a monastery at Bodh Gaya in 5th or 6th century for the stay of Sinhalese monks. So, by cosmopolitanism, I meant the coexistence or living together by different ethnicities and in a peaceful manner. There was some institutional arrangement to accommodate the interest of all, and people from far flung areas, they were welcome, they were accepted. So I use this term in that particular context.
Yes, you're right.
Dr. Aich, you're mutual again.
Any other questions are most welcome.
I
So
don't
the
have any
speakers are
questions.
here to yes. How to promote heritage and culture in social media era. Now, sir, any of the expert can answer to this question, including Dr. Narayan.
No, this is the to promote heritage and culture in media is a these days. The media has a very little concern for the culture and heritage. They are they have no. I can say that they have very little respect for heritage. They are busy with what they are saying as globalization, criminalization, and you see the questions at the international level. That and in Hindi newspaper, Hindi media, that's also much more low. That's not concerned with any academic input, and we do not see any such article, research article in any newspaper except for one or two newspaper which are still maintaining the and publishing research articles. Otherwise, they are full of the advertisement and with the news which have no concern for culture and heritage and for the common people. So this is something very you see, difficult trend which has come up in these days, the current media. That needs to be, we have to look at that, and perhaps people who are in the media sector, they themselves will, are questioning that how much they are doing for the preservation and promotion of culture and heritage. Because the preservation of culture and promoting the culture is one of the responsibility to all those civilized person, all those persons who have even little concern for Indian civilization and Indian culture. So that is one thing, but I'm happy that at least we have some people like Sengupta ji and some other people. I remember in early 70s, we used to have one person like Kushwant Singh. He started his uh, career as a journalist, and later on he became a novelist and that. So, but he was very much careful while writing the news, that what he is writing and where it is going to be published and who are the readers. That today we are lacking. We do not care for the audience, for the readers, but what actually they want and what is their felt need. So that is, we have to look at ourselves, what we are doing. That's why, considering such situation of haphazard development, you see, what development has done, development has created three situations at the global level as well as at the Indian level. That is the deprivatory development, discriminatory development, and uh, these, in the name of development, the discrimination has increased, the deprivation has increased, and people are confused, diffused. So that we have to think that what kind of world we want to make. We are in, after 100 years, we had a webinar also, India at 100. So what kind of policy we are, the policy which we are drafting and which we are bringing for the development of the people, where we will stand in after 100 years, what kind of society we are going to have. Today you will find that in the name of development, all the social institutions, all the kinship system, all the cultural activities have been so much dominated by the external world, by the global world, that we have forgotten our uh, kinship terminology, and we have forgotten the live in relationship has come. You see, I have a data that from remote rural area the live-in relationship has come up, and all social institutions are uh, going to decline. So what we are doing, it's the responsibility of all the people, especially the media and those who are in academics, that we should write on that, where we are going, what kind of development ought to be, what we want to do. So that is absent. So this is a very big question and a big task. But I'm happy that we have people like Dr. Vijay Choudhary, who is still doing to maintain the traditional culture and tra- traditional culture, traditional educational values, and all that things. He is interested. There is a group of people who are working to preserve and promote the culture, and there are some people in media also who are doing this kind of serious work for the people. So that we have praise for them. That's why in the beginning I told you that whatsoever webinar we are doing, we are sharing it with with the policy, so that the policy makers should understood what is the people's requirement, what kind of questions we are getting, and what kind of people's reactions we are getting. We are, you see, almost 10 days, we spend almost 10 days in selecting the topic, in selecting the theme, in selecting the speaker, and then in making them interaction with the people. Why we are doing? Because this is our responsibility as a citizen of the country. This is our responsibility that we must do at least to preserve, promote the culture, and to make the government aware of that where are the fault, where we should do it. And fortunately, government is hearing it. It's not that that's why we get encouraged that at least our time is not wasted. This is in future people will realize that such a platform is more necessary.
Mr.
And we
Narayan,
must
your
yes,
what you just said reminded me of an
yeah.
example I keep using quite often. If you could give me a few minutes, I use this often as an example to show how times have changed. I was born in Nagpur like a long time ago, and in the place where I was born, there, at the complex outside, there was this arch which said Swagatam. And my Hindi was not very good, so I asked somebody that, what does it really mean? And they explained that this means that we welcome whoever who comes into our house without any bias, without any prejudice. They're all welcome. And I went back to Nagpur about a decade, 2 decades later. Of course, a lot had changed, but what really struck me and what, to me seems like an indication of how times have changed is that arch had been replaced, and instead there's a board which said, "Beware of dog." So, I think that is a reflection of how times have changed. I'm not sure whether we can fight it or whether we can do much about it. It is how it is.
You are right. What you are saying is right, but it all depends who is piloting, who are piloting these things, and what is the how we are piloting the problems, social problems, educational problem, all that. It all depends on that. No,
Because, I
So I
mean,
will
the era of,
and
let's
we
say,
have
the
to struggle.
generation
We
before
have to
me,
struggle for this. We have to struggle not only with this. We have to struggle to continue our work because we are working on Gandhiji, and after completing uh, each session of Gandhiji, we have made a documentary on Gandhiji in songs. All
mhm,
that we have to fight with so many things, so many institutions, so many people. We have to find it, but we are fighting. We are not just leaving it. So it all depends on how you approach the government and what is your mindset, whether it is for some good cause or it is only just for uh, just for things. Because what in the beginning I said that whatever presentation made today, this will be this is the this program was designed largely because we wanted that there should be a link between the ancient university, the Nalanda ancient university, and the modern education policy. Because if there is no more linkages between new education policy and the ancient Nalanda University education system, then how can we become Vishwaguru or how can we uh, preserve and promote our Indian culture and tradition of knowledge, of education? So for that we did with this we have concluded 4 sessions, and all the 4 sessions that is in the record, and you can also see on this. It is very much there on Facebook and YouTube. You can see it, and then it is also with the record of the government. So that is very much there. I do not know how much I will succeed in the mission, but we have just taken it like that, and we go for the social causes also. So that so many things are there that you can find. We can, if you like, we can send you the list of the webinars which we have done in last 4 years, and some of them are published also. So you can get Sharmistha will give you all the details because I have to coordinate so many things. Organizing. We have a teaching program also. We have a training program also. So all that is there. Then my own work is also there. So we have taken all together all those things, and we are hoping that some senior people will join us shortly, and then we will get all such details. But whatsoever detail you want about the program, Sharmistha is there. She will give you
Sure.
because she is looking after the webinars and other such
Thank you very much.
activities of the society. So she is
For
in a
me, this
position
is
to
an
give
immense
you all.
learning experience because
So I
I
have all good words, and I'm very much thankful to both of you that you spare time for us and you fit. If you like, Sir Mister, you can give them feedback what we of today's program, or maybe tomorrow by
We
10,
can do
10
that,
p.m.
sir,
you will be by
definitely,
10
sir,
p.m.
by
today you
tomorrow,
will
sir.
be getting the feedback so that you can share with the speakers of today, the experts of
Yes,
today.
sir.
Okay,
Yes,
so
sir, definitely, sir.
thank you. So thank you very much for that, and please conclude, Sharmistha, to wind up
Thank
the
you, sir.
program.
Thank you very much. It was lovely interacting with both of you, including Dr. S. Narayan. It was like we had been accumulating used vast knowledge of the ancient culture and heritage of Nalanda. Thank you so much, sir, for your contribution to it, sir.
Thank you very much. And really, I will look forward to the feedback and also the list of webinars that you have been conducting. I would be interested in knowing that also. Yes.
Definitely,
Yes,
sir. We'll post
definitely.
that accordingly, sir.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank you, and
thank
good
you.
night,
Thank you
everybody.
very much. Good night.
Good
It
night,
was
sir.
it was a pleasure listening